Hello and welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy and governance. I'm Hamza Idris. Thank you for joining us. Many Nigerians thronged to polling stations in 26 states of the Federation for the February 3rd, 2024 rerun elections conducted by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. While some of the elections were conducted in line with directives by the court, others were held to fill vacant spaces in both states and federal legislatures created by death or another appointment for the affected lawmakers. Even though the Electoral Management Body projected that over 4.6 million voters were expected to come out, and stakeholders were positive that the conduct and outcome of the democratic exercise will witness significant improvement from the last year's general and off-cycle elections, which witnessed some major setbacks. A lot of issues nonetheless cropped up this time across the states. Indeed, reports across the states where the rerun elections held have left much to be desired in terms of conduct and roles played by the key actors, including politicians, security agencies, and the electoral umpires, such as technical glitches, vote buying and selling, violence, and other forms of malpractices, in some cases even loss of life. It is against this backdrop we'll be engaging a non-accredited election observer for the Center for Democracy and Development, CDD, Arms-Free Ajanaku. He is the lead communications at the center. Together, we'll be appraising the conduct and outcome of the second run-up polls after the national elections that was held last year. Yes, Arms-Free, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
We hope you are as free as your name implies. Yes, we'll now take a tidbit before we commence the program. Yes, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has said President Bola Tinubu's economic policies are dashing hopes, creating pain and causing despair among Nigerians. Atiku, in a statement on Sunday, added that poor response to the nation's challenges is setting the stage for a prolonged and deeper economic crisis. Atiku's statement followed the economic hardship which resulted from the removal of fuel subsidy by the Tinubu administration during his inaugural address. Tinubu said the subsidy was removed as the money was being fueled into the deep pockets and lavish bank accounts of a select group of individuals, noting that the country could no longer sustain it. But reacting to what he described as Atiku Abubakar's diatribe, presidential spokesman Bayo Onanuga said Atiku has recently found a new hobby to keep himself busy, having failed to achieve his lifelong ambition of becoming the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. According to Onanuga, Atiku is increasingly carving for himself the role of opposition in chief to President Bola Tinubu and his government. He noted, however, that Atiku is doing a poor job of it, offering pedestrian and uninformed interventions on our economy and other matters of public concerns. We'll now take a short break, and when we return, the conversation proceeds. Don't go away. Welcome back. Yes, Arms-Free, even though I know your role is on, entrenching democracy. I think it is democracy at play when you look at the two tidbits we read. Yesterday, Atiku fired the first salvo and then Onanuga fired back, saying Atiku is assuming the role of opposition in chief. Is that the right title for someone like Atiku?
Yes, so if I was in Atiku camp, I would take pride in any assertion which suggests I'm playing the role of opposition, because opposition is critical in a democracy. And in fact, if there is one reason why the opposition parties in the current democratic dispensation have been criticized, is the fact that they have not offered enough oppositional resistance to the policies of the APC government. And our democracy is crying out for a serious opposition that will put the APC on its toes and interrogate the policies that the APC government is currently implementing. So if Atiku is described in that light, I think it's a good one. But to say that he's doing a poor job of it, it's a matter for Nigerians to decide.
Yeah, But as far as in professional context, that is the way to go.
Absolutely.
Opposition parties, opposition politicians should speak out.
Absolutely. They should speak out, and we should not just see them speaking out without context. For example, during the debates in the National Assembly over critical issues of policy, over critical programs of the government, the opposition should be able to show a sense of distinction. They should be able to show that they have alternative ideas. They have a different pathway to push Nigeria's development agenda. Because if they parrot what the ruling party is doing, then they cannot convince voters. In fact, the opposition should be light, they should be athletic, they should be ready to pounce at the slightest opportunity, because that's the only way they can show that they are more capable to deliver the dividends of democracy to Nigerians. But if they just simply roll over at the slightest, I'll give you an example. When the debate over vehicles, purchase of vehicles, and those old ideas around squandering the country's resources came up at the National Assembly, many Nigerians expected lawmakers who were elected on the platform of the opposition to be able to stamp their feet and say, no, they are against this. But we saw them all just quietly accepting.
We brought some of them here, and when we asked them, why you kept quiet at the height of the debate, when Nigerians were crying that they are going to buy 160 million, a unit of those vehicles. Some of them, they said they are taking decisions. What kind of decision? Is it that you rejected those vehicles? They kept quiet.
In fact, if there was a reason for opposition lawmakers to walk out of the National Assembly, that was an opportune moment. That was an opportune moment to infuse some drama, to bring in some sense of morality into the... Yeah, we know that politicians don't have anything to do with morality. They just want to grab power and then use power the way they want. But the opposition should be able to take the moral high ground to say, at a time of biting economic hardship, when the Nigerian people are faced on all fronts with all manner of hardship, difficulties. You talk about the cost of living crisis. But you cannot be doing this.
Exactly. Now, Atiku seems to speak more. Of course, Peter Obi, inspiringly, you hear him issuing a statement. But about 18 political parties fielded candidates for the presidential election. Have they all gone to bed?
Yeah, this is the crisis of Nigeria's democracy, or this is part of the crisis of Nigeria's democracy, apart from the crisis of our electoral process, which definitely we'll come to talk about. The fact that the political parties who say they want to dislodge a ruling party is not a tea party. It's not a stroll in the park for you to think that you can assemble what it takes to displace a ruling party. So you have to invest in that process. You have to, like I said, you have to be athletic. You have to be more, you have to be swifter.
And it shouldn't be a one-off thing, right?
It's not a one-off thing. It's a process that you invest time, you invest mental energy into, you invest a lot of your capacity to say you want to make yourself distinct as a party, and then it is then you can convince the voters that you are really serious about taking power. Because if you don't play that role from the point of debate around the policies and how the country is governed, you can't just show up in election.
Today we saw quite a number of people in Mina, Niger State. They trooped to the streets, speaking along the line of Atiku, biting hunger, high cost of living, no money, no employment. What does this mean? You work in a democratic institute. What is the pointer?
This is, I would say, in a sense, without trying to be pessimistic, it's the gathering of the clouds. The signs are ominous. And we hope that those in authority will see this for what it is. Because this is not politics anymore. This is the clear reality of how the economy has pushed people to the margins, and the people are beginning to express their frustrations. So you are seeing people saying, we cannot afford 3 square meals, we cannot buy anything anymore. The inflationary pressure is biting hard. people don't have access to basic necessities, and the people are beginning to speak up. And so if the government is truly about the people, and the APC government truly says it wants to renew the hopes of Nigerians, then it has to start listening to these voices on the ground. The people, these are not the articles anymore. These are the ordinary Nigerians. These are the Nigerians who know that they don't know where the next meal is coming from. They don't have the disposable income to even buy anything. So it is not a child's play. And the earlier the government starts putting out its thinking cap, the better for us. Nigeria is already faced with so many crises. We have the crisis of insecurity. We have the crisis of food poverty. We have the hunger in the land. We have so many things we are confronting. We do not need an uprising that will pull the system down. Yeah. And the only way to prevent such an uprising is for the government to engage the people at the grassroots. Now, the government earlier on last year came up with a palliative program, but the impact of that program, it's non-existent. There was no impact because the government did not think outside the box.
Even though the figures are there, humongous amount of money that have been...
but the government did not think outside the box. It merely just threw money at a problem, and the money again has gone down the drain. We saw scenes of people fighting over a few bags of rice and
cups.
This is dehumanizing.
Okay, finally on this, how should government respond? Because we were reviewing, our plans for tomorrow's paper earlier, in the evening in the newsroom. That the governor in Niger State, he said those people protesting were actually sponsored. Is that the way to respond to things like this?
Yes. So that's not being realistic. That's not being that's not a statement that tries to calibrate the situation and recognize that these are voices of citizens. Because no matter what, you won't say someone is sponsored if the person does not have any option and the person has to come out on the streets to cry out, to say, I am hungry, I don't have a disposable income, I can't even meet my healthcare needs. Those are the basics. So I don't want to join issues with anyone, but I would only want to admonish for the peace, security, and orderly governance of Nigeria that the ruling elite must be ready to listen to the cries of the ordinary people. And when you ask what is to be done, there are very good ideas around, for example, if you want to do a palliative distribution. The first group of people to start with are the vulnerable, the most marginalized segments of the population. Those are the people you start with. And you ensure that the process is inclusive. So you saw in those situations where palliatives were being distributed, people with disabilities scrambling for a few cups of rice with able-bodied people. It was also disorganized. There was no structure to it. There was no thinking to it. It was just all more like patronage. Those kinds of processes will not deliver the kind of results we want. That's why we have said government in these kinds of programs should consult with civil society like ours. We also run some kinds of programs in terms of managing projects in communities. We have networks that can actually partner with government to deliver programs like this in a way that it is organized and nobody feels left out. Excellent. In the end.
Thank you very much for your informed perspective on this serious dilemma across the country, hunger, economy, and there is no conversation that should actually exclude this, and that's why we took this long to go deep into it. Thank you very much. Now back to the business of the day, the Saturday rerun elections, and across 26 states, 3 senatorial districts, 17 federal, 28 state, constituencies across 8,934 polling units. Why was it difficult to manage? Somebody will say very simple: 17 federal constituencies, 3 senatorial districts, 28 state constituencies. Why?
So why was it difficult to manage? I don't want to hold brief for INEC.
Yes.
But probably what I would do is to offer a prognosis or some analysis into what we saw And to do that prognosis, we have to first of all come to terms with the context of the election. This election involved, like INEC told us, 4.6 million voters. So that's the voting strength in some countries in West Africa.
Okay, this is the perspective we are taking it from.
Yes, so to say it should be a stroll in the park, maybe that has to be reconsidered, given the dynamics of our elections, given the fact that Nigeria currently has a democracy that has very few Democrats. And so the character of the process will, to a large extent, be determined by the players. What are the players doing? What is their disposition? Are they players who are willing to play by the rules? Are they ready to go by the rule of law? Are they ready to follow the norms that govern democratic conduct? The answer to all of these questions is a resounding no. And so you still saw the manifestations of those kinds of disruptive tendencies that have always undermined our electoral process come into play. Now, was INEC blameless? Was INEC faultless in all of this? No. INEC also has a significant portion of the blame to take. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
In the off-cycle elections in Kogi, Imo, and Bayelsa, in Kogi particularly, there was an instance in which, in some polling units, some ad hoc staff of INEC came to the polling units with pre-filled results. And then there was uproar, everybody was talking about it, and INEC promised to do or conduct an investigation. Till today, we do not know the outcome of that investigation. And now, in the rerun elections and the by-elections we had on Saturday, there were also incidents of pre-filled result sheets. So it clearly shows that if you have a pattern of infraction on the electoral laws of the country and you sweep it under the carpet, you have basically emboldened more actors to go ahead, and do the same thing. And so that's what we saw in some of those instances. We also saw instances in which electoral materials, were missing. In Plateau, for example, they couldn't find the ballot papers.
It appears like a new trend, especially they know the number. At a time they just estimate and then take these ballot papers. But then there is a sense of precision. But then, officials hoarding. To what end?
Yes, so that's where like I said, as we are acknowledging the challenges INEC faces, given the democratic culture or the culture of democracy or culture of elections we have, the do or die approach to elections, we must also be able to ruthlessly interrogate their own lapses. Because in a rerun election or in a by-election where you already know the number of voters in that particular constituency, you have the voter register, you cannot be giving excuses that you couldn't find ballot papers and all of. It's not tenable. It's not tenable. Even in a general election, that is not tenable. So we must be ready to hold the commission accountable in those instances where it has direct lapses, where its own administrative processes have failed. We must be ready to question that and then hold them to account, because let's not make any mistake about it. The monies that are used for elections, they are public funds. They come, so we're talking about the fact that the country needs money for development, we need money for so many things. So if we must spend on elections, we must get value for money. And there is no value for money in a situation in which you have said you deliver ballot papers to a particular polling unit and you ended up not doing it. So INEC must have a kind of reverse mechanism where the relevant officials who have failed to deliver in terms of their responsibility would be held accountable.
For the case in Jos, for instance, I saw it on WhatsApp, that specific election official. You know, they suspended him. They asked him to step aside, and then they asked those under him to complete the election. But there was something disturbing. You know, a video was trending. One of the INEC national commissioners sent there in the person of Mohammed Haruna. He was brutalized of sort, verbally, not physical attack. But they call him all sorts of names. This was one of the political parties that was actually asked not to participate in the election. Can we say the legal system is also protecting INEC? While INEC is trying to correct some of its shortcomings, now the political actors are actually merciless on INEC.
Yes, so that's where that reminds of the point which I made about democracy without democrats, democracy without the full complement of characters who should know that in a democracy you have to go by the rule of law and the ruling of a court. For example, if a court says you are not allowed to participate in the process, you go back and sit down. In fact, you can even apply a political solution. You are now maybe make a reference to PDP in Plateau, for instance, yes, which was restricted because even in the build-up to this rerun and these by-elections, they kept on muddying the waters. They kept on creating tension where it was a simple thing as the Court of Appeal has given a judgment that has removed you. Whether the Court of Appeal is wrong or it's right, that is the position of the law at that time. So until there's any other process that reverses that, which is clear that that is where it terminates, those cases terminate at the Court of Appeal, you play by the rule of law. And you could even have some internal political processes to compensate those who have lost out in that process, knowing that now the Supreme Court has said, it's a different, based on the decision on the governor's case. You can go back and say, okay, those who were affected this time, in the next election in 2027, probably, they will be the ones to fly the ticket of the party. That's one political solution. Another political solution is they could form alliance with some parties who are qualified. So it must not be them. And they actually did, because for the senatorial seat, they supported someone in Labour Party, and then for the House of Representatives, especially the contentious district, which is, I think, just not, Bassa Federal Constituency, they supported someone in ADP. Can we bring the issue of anti-party posturing when political parties are so... So if they have explored those political solutions, yes, why did they still insist on hitting up the polity, on verbally assaulting? Since they knew that they had second option. So you can see that, the politicians, they are not helping our democracy. And we must continue to insist that they have a responsibility to behave in the proper way that would support democracy and democratic consolidation. We cannot continually advertise ourselves to the world as a people that are incapable of following due process and following the norms, following democratic norms. Because as we speak, Nigeria is positioning itself as a champion of democracy, not only in West Africa, but on the entire African continent. President Tinubu is seen as someone who, if democracy is troubled anywhere on the continent, he's called upon to go there. But if the Nigerian politicians are not also ready to showcase that capacity to be able to say, oh, if I've lost out in a process, then I'll go home and fight another day, or I'll go home and contest, in the process another day. It becomes a big problem. And that's why media platforms like these and many other, we should keep on drumming it, whether it's by moral suasion and whether it's also by ensuring we enforce the law where people run foul of the laws. Then we should do it and ensure that this process we call a democracy, which gives all of us the opportunity to air our voices, to bring our perspectives in the process of governance, it's upheld and it's not dropped on the ground and trampled on the ground by
many people expected that, okay, being an off-season election of sort, and as I keep mentioning these numbers, 3 senatorial districts, 17 federal and 28 state constituencies, of course, in 80 local government areas, that with the enormous resources at the disposal of INEC, then the number of security agencies that we have, police, civil defense, and all that. So we shouldn't have witnessed, delay in the arrival of election materials in some places. Why did we notice it in quite a number of places? Election did not start on time. Is it lack of trust or what happened?
Yes, so
based on your findings, most likely.
Yes. So I think it goes back to the same analysis that Center for Democracy and Development has always done. We have a framework with which we analyze elections. We call them the famous eyes.
Okay, the famous eyes.
Yes, the eye of insecurity. Insecurity, for example, may cause delay if you have a particular electoral terrain, like we saw some polling units being attacked. So if the process, comes under attack from non-state actors, then you readily cannot say that's an INEC lapse. But that's why I said, in those clear cases where, INEC recorded lapses, we should be ruthless in holding them accountable. We should be unsparing in ensuring that they explain what happened. And by the way, it was the other day, Professor Tahiru Jega was saying...
The former INEC.
Yes, the former INEC chair was saying, INEC has still not explained to Nigerians what happened with the electronic collation of results, the IREV, the electronic upload of results, and all of that. The glitch they talked about during the general elections. Till date, Nigerians are yet to come to terms with what actually was that glitch, who was responsible, given the enormous resources that you have expended in this process. The IT, Information Technology Department of INEC, have they answered the right questions in terms of being accountable for that national embarrassment? So these are, so talking about logistics, it could be a multiplicity of factors, but where it is INEC that has, because INEC also works with stakeholders, the vendors, the
NURTW, the police,
and all those people that would help you deliver. So was it that you didn't have a very comprehensive agreement with them? Was it that those people failed them last minute? All of those, and that's why we said something after the election. CDD said INEC should do a comprehensive audit. Like we sit down with all stakeholders, do a comprehensive audit of what worked with the elections, what did not work, what were the gray areas, where did it happen that you were not able to deliver, what happened in those particular areas. Because if you want to have a clear vision of where you are going to, you have to look at where you are coming from.
Introspection.
Exactly. You have to do that reflection. But if you fail to do that reflection, or you do that reflection in a way that is not comprehensive enough, then you are bound to repeat the same mistakes over and over, and we will not move on from that a discussion of how the commission has not been able to deliver.
All right, thank you very much. We will go on a short break. Yes, and viewers, remain with us. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back. If you are just joining, this is Daily Politics on Trust TV. Do well to follow the conversation across our social platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and watch us live on YouTube. We still have in the studio Amspri Ajanaku. He's the lead communications at Center for Democracy and Development. And we are doing a post-mortem on the Saturday's rerun and by-elections held in 26 states of the Federation. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
Why is it difficult to conduct by-elections, or rather off-season elections of sorts, compared to the general elections? I may be wrong, but I'm having this feeling that it appears to be more difficult for INEC and other stakeholders to conduct elections such as the ones we held on Saturday.
There are a number of theories, one of which is that in the general election, the politicians tend to be more widely spread out, and the tendency for them to foment trouble, given that a lot more of the security apparatus is mobilized for a general election and all of that, they foment trouble. But in a by-election or a
off-season,
yes, it's a situation in which even politicians from different states can converge on a particular electoral terrain and become much more problematic.
To unleash terror.
Exactly.
Just to support one of their own.
Exactly. So this time around, it's not like the general election where, you have to be fighting for your own constituency. So if APC wants to increase by 1 seat, it can afford to mobilize all the assets, mobilize all the politicians to go there. If the PDP wants a particular area, so it's not like it's more difficult. It's just that the electoral umpire or the election management body is up against a lot more challenges when you talk about people, especially politicians, having to converge on fewer number of elections in order to sway it their way, because we have it well documented that our political actors will stop at nothing to win. They do not have the spirit of sportsmanship to say, okay, if they lose in an election, and then they will congratulate. Their tendency is to do everything, whether legal or illegal, to win the race, and so it becomes more problematic during an off-season election.
And what happens? What do you think should be done now? We have, at the election, certainly we'll have litigations. For instance, look at in Kano, Enugu, and Akwa Ibom, they had to suspend the elections. Some thugs were arrested. Should this be part of our democratic?
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, and like I said, INEC has a role to play. The security agencies have a role to play. And when I talk about INEC's role, I just talked about some electoral offenses that were recorded during the off-cycle governorship elections, which
in Kogi, in Bayelsa,
exactly,
and in Imo.
Exactly, which INEC said we're investigating till date. There's no feedback on what has been the outcome of that. The perpetrators of those Prefilled results. So there is always a relationship. There's a nexus between when you condone infraction in the electoral process and when you see more of such infraction. Because what you have simply communicated to the actors responsible for that is impunity pays. Impunity is a good thing to engage in. So if I did pre-filling of result sheets before an election started and I got there, nobody has seen me being prosecuted, they just saw that, okay, the case has been swept under the carpet, you have just given blank check to another set of electoral criminals to perpetrate the same offense.
Then who will bail INEC now? Because I know over time, whenever we interview them, they need election, tribunal, right? We are not tribunal, court, election offenses court. But it's like the National Assembly is reluctant to give them this. Don't you think the legislators, the politicians are the one aiding and abetting? Because they work in cohort with INEC officials to perpetrate some of these illegalities of filling forms. So who will bail? Is it you in the Center for Democracy and your likes, that will now come and insist that we must have election, offenses court?
Yes, so INEC in some instances has to bail itself.
How?
Yes. What I mean by that is, if, for instance, you are saying you are conducting an investigation, that should not take you, eternity to come back.
To file the case,
exactly.
Even in a conventional court.
Exactly. To come back with the even just say, let's start from the outcome of the investigation. So our investigation now has an outcome. Then see if we in civil society will not make the required noise. You saw what happened in Adamawa. CDD was on the front line of calling Yes, calling for accountability. You know, because in that particular case, there was action. There was action towards holding that gentleman accountable.
And up to now, he hasn't been held to account.
He hasn't been held to account.
It's like he's even missing in action.
Yes.
They say he has relocated to Niger.
But the thing is, at least INEC took some administrative steps to say, okay, this guy cannot continue, you know, on that seat. And so that started the process of, so even if he's running away from justice now, at least there have been some steps that have been taken, and we will continue to call for accountability. So in the first instance, INEC has to also help civil society and help the entirety of Nigerians to help it, because INEC is playing a role which is at the heart of the leadership recruitment process of our country. We cannot stand by and allow that process to be bastardized. So we must support INEC to do that. But INEC itself must also be proactive in doing that. Then the second part of who will bail out the situation, we have a responsibility.
The civil society.
And the media. We have a responsibility. You know, something as simple as putting it on a blog that somebody, you know, has been indicted for an electoral offense. It has a shame factor to it.
Okay.
So the whole process of naming and shaming those who are responsible for perpetrating electoral violence, vote buying, and bringing them to justice is a collective responsibility. So it is a whole of government, whole of society approach, because in the end, it is society that would progress if our electoral process produce good leadership.
And it appears our politicians have reduced life to nothing. Look at the incident in Kaduna, where a young person was killed. Is it that the law enforcement agencies are not doing their work well in protecting prospective voters, or they are overwhelmed?
Yes, so that's why in CDD, like we mentioned, that famous eye of insecurity. Another eye we talked about is the eye of the institution. So the institution is critical, and the institution would also have to do with the security agencies. How do they see? Because like in this election, I was doing another analysis on a TV station where I said, even the poll officials, the ad hoc staff that want to go out there to conduct the election, how confident are they that they can go out there and be safe? All of that boils down to security. But on the whole, I think there's one thing we need to deal with as a country. That sense of devaluation of life. The fact that the sanctity of the human life is no longer anything to reckon with. That is one germane issue. In fact, if I have an opportunity to be in leadership in this country,
you are one already. You know, leading the communication of CDD. Yes,
I would push for a sanctity of life commission. That commission,
apart from the Human Rights Commission, would that not be duplication? But we have National Human Rights Commission, we have Public Complaint Commission.
If the National Human Rights Commission is playing that role robustly, fine, we may put it under that. But it has become so critical that it's like an emergency. The fact that human life does not matter, the state kills, non-state actors kill, then citizens also kill themselves. So you can, you go on media today, you see all kinds of stories of people killing, human beings over arguments, over yam, over.
And in addition to all this, you can see hunger and poverty also killing people.
Exactly.
So to define Nigeria's democracy, is it? I don't want to be misunderstood, but have Nigerians started to have a feel that it is now 24 or 25 years of democracy?
Absolutely not.
Then what is fueling the desperation? Because you can see clear issue of desperation here. Politicians, they want to win by hook or by crook. And this boils down to why they steal ballot papers. This boils down to why they attack each other. This boils down to why they are killing people.
So 25 years of democracy has not delivered to the expectations of citizens. We must not kid ourselves about it. Yes, there have been areas of some gains. You know, someone will say, for example, you can air your views. You can,
as we are doing now.
As we're doing now and all of that, that is progress. But for the ordinary citizen on the ground, the understanding of progress goes beyond the fact that you can talk freely, there's freedom of speech to an extent and all of that. They, at that level, want democracy to deliver on the concrete realities on the ground. Democracy has to deliver good education so that you don't spend all your earnings on private schools. Democracy has to deliver on health care so that you do not have to be faced with a death sentence the moment you have one ailment or the other. Democracy has to deliver on infrastructure so that people will not get killed in road accidents.
And you can only get this if you make it less attractive, because it's like most of the politicians, maybe some that have property, they sell it to invest. Some that don't have, they go extra mile to borrow to invest. How can we discourage all this? How can we make it less attractive but more rewarding? I mean, our democratic process.
Yes, so one way which people have suggested is that our over-centralization has concentrated attention at the central part of our government. Meanwhile, where we need development is at the grassroots, at the local governance level. Today, as we speak, there's no democracy at the local governance level in Nigeria. So you cannot say you want to nurture democracy and you want to bring about good governance when the nursery bed where you should...
local government areas.
Yes, when the nursery bed is not democratic.
But then, not to cut you, people are saying it is because governors are the ones controlling state independent electoral commission, who in turn, conduct elections in those grassroots areas. And you see a state with maybe 25 or 27 or 30 local government areas, the ruling party clearing everything. Hence the call for INEC to actually take over conducting elections at the local government level. Is that a fair demand by Nigerians or by stakeholders?
Yeah, the demand is fair. A demand can be fair, yet it has its own internal contradictions.
Okay.
And the internal contradiction in this sense would be that we are running away from over-centralization.
Yes.
And so you move further towards over-centralizing INEC.
Simply because people believe if you get the election at the local government level, fair enough, maybe things will start to work. But with the current arrangement where it is only SEC that organizes election, no room for opposition, and that is why we are yet to get it. Right?
Yes, so maybe we need to interrogate this further, because if you look at the level of the states now, the fact that they control resources, they squeeze out the local governments and all of that. If you now conduct elections that are free and fair, all parties, would that still stop the states from squeezing out? So there are many more constitutional reforms you still need to make to ensure that the local governments are truly democratic and they are truly independent. And then you have now devolved powers to the grassroots of the country. So it's not just at the level of elections. And even when you talk about elections, if you continue electing politicians who feel governance is an opportunity to get rich quick, you're only going to democratize looting. So there are many more conversations. So let's not come away with the impression that a simplistic approach can just make all the problems go away. But one thing I can say is that in the current government of the APC, even President Bola Ahmed Tinubu himself, he has always been an advocate of restructuring, of devolution of
we
powers.
are not hearing anything along that line.
This is the contradiction that even in the Buhari administration,
In fact, the El Rufai committee of the FPC brought that.
Exactly. So I think citizens, yourself, myself, all of us who are feeling the pinch, many citizens are there that they are not ready to engage these issues. So they say, let's jack back, let's leave the country. Because the issues...
The Japa syndrome.
Exactly. The issues are difficult. But those of us who still believe that we have a country, if we put in our best effort, we can evolve and ensure that the country is on the path of progress. We still have a responsibility to keep speaking out, to keep engaging, to ensure that democracy really thrives. I don't see any reason why all of these big monies at the federal level, because if, for example, you talk about humanitarian affairs, the scandal that was there, the monies that humanitarian affairs was using to do ping pong,
allegedly,
they were monies that were programmed to go to the grassroots.
But they couldn't get there.
They couldn't get there.
Were intercepted midway.
What is the use of putting other monies at the center, where the people who need the monies the most are the grassroots? So we need to rethink. I don't claim to have all of the answers, and nobody can claim to have all of the answers. We must intentionally, in fact, there have even been answers that have been proposed. You have the National Conference of 2014, you have different documents that have proposed solutions.
So tinubu should revisit them.
The president, more so that he cut his teeth as a politician on the back of restructuring, on the back of devolution of powers. So why is it that we have this situation I'll call hypocritical situation where someone stands for something all his life, and then when you now have the opportunity, you have the enormous powers to engage the system in that discussion on how to bring about. That's why I'll give credit to President Goodluck Jonathan. At the time, I criticized the National Conference, because I saw it as a jamboree. But if you look at the recommendations today, we must give President Goodluck Jonathan a lot of kudos for putting together that, even though he didn't do it on time, to allow him time to implement it.
Okay.
If he had done it on time, then moved on to implement it, I'm telling you, much of the hydra-headed problems we are grappling with.
That was in 2014, and we have run short of time. But in less than 1 minute, I want you to talk about the Electoral Act. Is it an ideal document, or we just have to revisit it going by what we have seen during the general elections, during the off-season election in Imo, Bayelsa, and Kogi, and then the Saturday elections that we have? Do we revisit the Electoral Act?
Yes, since I have 1 minute.
Yes.
I would just summarize by saying we need to revisit the Electoral Act.
Okay.
That Electoral Act is still work in progress.
Okay.
And if there's one thing we must put in the Electoral Act, we must put the Electoral Offences Commission.
Okay.
That is the surest pathway to ensuring that electoral impunity no longer thrives. And if people know that they are facing 10 years jail, 15 years jail for electoral offences, if they know that they will spend 5 years in jail if they go snatch a ballot box or go overrun a polling unit, they would think twice before they commit such offences.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm Sri Ajanago, lead communications at Center for Democracy and Development, CDD, for accepting to come to the program after the tortuous journey, to cover the elections on Saturday. We thank you for your informed perspective.
Thank you so much.
And viewers, that's a wrap on today's package. We sincerely hope you found the conversation engaging and informative. And be sure to join Daily Politics airing live every weekday on our special package on Friday, during which we open the telephone line for you to comment on national issues. For now, bye-bye. I'm Hamza Idris.